Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. My name's Mary Jo Leahy. I'm from Global Force, and I'm excited to introduce our speaker for the session this afternoon, the breakout session, Erica. I keep wanting to say Kerwin, and it's Keswin.
Definitely not Kerwin.
I'm sorry. I keep reading it right and keep saying it wrong. She's a workplace strategist and founder of the Spaghetti Project, which was inspired by a 2015 Cornell study about the fact that firefighters who eat together perform better in their jobs. And if I am dealing with a firefighter in a professional situation, I really want them to perform well in their job. I don't know about you, right? That's kind of an important one. So she's going to talk about that. She's also the author of a book called Bring Your Human to Work, which is coming out in September, so look for that. She is a graduate of the Kellogg School from Northwestern and from University of Vermont, right? Bachelor's from the University of Vermont. Please welcome Erica Keswin.
You got it. Okay. Did anyone see the firefighters at the Fairmont last night? A few of you. We were sitting there having dinner, and I said to my colleague, this blue light was flashing, and I said, I think there could be a fire. She's like, no, there's not. I turn around, and there are 6 firefighters, one cuter than the next. And she said to me, I wasn't even worried about the fire. I didn't smell smoke. I said to her, go get a picture of me with those firefighters. So I got up, and there's a few of the women that we ended up having dinner with that are here. So I go up, and no, true story, I started telling one of them about the Spaghetti Project. And he said to me, they have family time in their firehouse. And he said, you need to tell my boss, the captain, this story, literally in the lobby of the Fairmont last night. So I'm sitting there with the captain and all the firefighters, and it really is true that when we connect and we sit around a table, and it doesn't even have to be a table, and build trust, good things happen. And so the Spaghetti Project is all about, my tagline is that good things happen when people connect. So that was just as an aside, given the excitement of last night. So let's get into it. This is my 3rd year at WorkHuman, and it's been amazing to see the growth of this movement. But it also makes me ask myself, what is going on? What is this human stuff, and why are there, I thought there were 2,500, it's actually 2,800 people in Austin talking about working human. So by way of background, I've spent the last 20 plus years working in the human capital space, helping companies improve their performance through people. And the last 8 of those years, studying the relationship between people and technology, and looking at how technology is impacting our ability to work human. But before we dive into that, I think it's important to ask a question. What does it even mean to work human, right? We're all here talking about it for 4 days. What does it even mean to work human? What I have found is that working human comes down to one thing, and that one thing is honoring relationships, and honoring relationships in everything we do. And I strongly, strongly believe that the companies that get this right are the ones that are going to come out ahead in this next world of work. So let's get into it. Hopefully this works. Okay, so take a look at this picture. How do you think it would feel to work in this company? Right? Awful. Awful. Do you think it seems like a company that honors relationships? I don't. So the reason that there are 2,800 of us in Austin is that there is a huge paradigm shift going on from this Dilbert-esque sort of stiff corporate identity to people wanting and even demanding something more. So as Mary Jo said in the intro, I wrote a book called Bring Your Human to Work, and it's up on Amazon. It comes out in September. I'm really excited. A number of the companies that are here this week are in the book. And the idea behind the book, and the reason why I wrote it, is that I wanted to share with the world why working human is good for us as people, why it's good for business, and why it's good for the world. Just a quick aside, I do believe that as leaders we need to walk the walk and model what we're talking about, and I meant to do this in the beginning, but I got caught up with the firefighters. I wanted to share that I am literally bringing my little human to work. My son Daniel's here, he's 12. You can stand up, give everybody a little shout out. He's my wingman. He's on spring break. I'm like, I'm working, so you can come to Austin. All right, so good for people, great for business, just might change the world. What does that mean? The Surgeon General recently came out with a study and found that there is one thing that is the biggest health risk facing our country. Does anybody know what it is? Right, I heard loneliness. Isolation and loneliness. It's not smoking, secondhand smoke, sitting. It's not even screens, which is a whole separate topic. It is isolation. So what does that mean for all of you here? I often say, left to our own devices, excusing the cheesy pun, we are not connecting, which is such an unbelievable opportunity for everyone in this room. Your job is to curate connection for your employees so that they don't feel lonely, that they don't feel isolated at work. And we all know we spend most of our week, most of our years, most of our lives at work. So that's why Working Human is good for people. In terms of the business, there's a lot of studies. I thought I'd highlight one here, which is a recent study that found that when people came into an organization and were introduced as their authentic selves versus some kind of organizational entity, that these people after 6 months had much higher levels of employee satisfaction and stayed with the company longer. And in terms of the world, as we've been talking about and seeing when you go down to the big main room for WorkHuman, a human workplace gives us all a greater sense of purpose. So my book, this is not the cover, but I actually have a couple of these if anybody wants one. This is a little preview, Bring Your Human to Work. And in it, I outline 10 ways to create a human workplace. Saying thank you, which obviously we're here at Global Force, that's a huge issue. How do we say thank you at work? There's a really fun chapter called Mind Your Meetings. When you look at that and you think of the soul-crushing amount of meetings that we're all in all day long, and then we start to do our real job after our 9 meetings throughout the day are over. And there's a chapter called Playing the Long Game, which looks at diversity and inclusion in a very new way. So not just making sure our organizations are diverse, but also thinking about what I call intentional work practices. Do we have flexible work? Do we have parental leave? If we don't think about these other kinds of practices, how can we attract a diverse workforce? So there's a lot of different things in the book. And I share that with you because I want you to think about it as a menu of options. You can pick ways to create a human workplace that work for you, that work for your culture, that work for where you are in your company's trajectory, except for one thing. There's one thing that every human company must do, and that is be real. It's the most important thing. It gets you in the game, and that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you create a workplace that is real and that is authentic? So the first way you do it is that you need to know who you are, and you need to define your values. Now, in Brené Brown's talk, she asked the question, and I was sitting in the back, so I saw every single person in that room raise their hand. Who has company values? Everybody does. But I would venture to guess that many companies out there, if not most, they have values, but they're on a plaque on a desk, or they're sort of on the walls instead of being felt in the halls. And that's not going to do it. That will not help you create a human company. Another mistake companies make is that they have way too many values. 8, 10, 12, 14, literally, I have companies that I work with that have 14 values. It's too many. It's too many for a couple of reasons. Number one, it doesn't allow you to distill down to your essence of who you really are. Why are you different? What do you stand for? What do you want to do in the world? Why does your company exist? The second's a little bit more of a practical reason. You want your employees to be able to operationalize these values and to have the behaviors that are aligned with these values. And it's hard to do that for 14 values. The third one is a great litmus test to really look internally at your own values for your company or your values as a person. I mean, we talk about that as well. When you're at a fork in the road, your values should help determine whether you should go right or whether you should go left. And I think it's a great litmus test. You're trying to make a decision. Should I hire this person? Should I close this deal? Should I promote this person? If your values are defined and integrated into the organization, they will help you answer those questions. So does anybody recognize the pink mustache? Lyft, yeah. So Lyft is an amazing human company. They have 4 very clear values. I just wanted to share them because I think they nailed it. Be yourself, create fearlessly, uplift, get it? Uplift others, and make it happen. And those 4 values literally drive, and again, I don't know, I have so many puns today, but drive everything, but they truly, truly do. Everything they do, from who they hire, how they train and develop, even down to the design of their physical space. So here's a question for you guys. How many of you hear from your employees about, especially those of you who have moved to an open office, I can't concentrate, I can't focus, I need an office, right? I can't be out in the open. Do you guys hear that from your employees? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the train has left the station. The world is moving toward more open offices. And the same thing happens at Lyft. But one of their values is to create fearlessly. So how can you create fearlessly if there's nowhere to go? So one of the founders is obsessed with Willy Wonka and designed, in each of their offices, they have a special design. And in the San Francisco office, they have a room, it's called the Willy Wonka room. There's a big picture of Willy Wonka on the front, and there's a secret entrance, and you go in, and it's set up like a library. And it's quiet, and people, they're either whispering or not talking at all, and that is a very special place where people can go to create fearlessly. And I wanted to share the example because many times we talk about this stuff, but we're trying to figure out ways to bring it to life. And the most important way to do that is think about how you are aligning these values with all of your other processes. Okay, so the first way to be real is to know who you are. The second way is to speak in an authentic voice. So this is a woman named Ellen Bennett, and she is a pistol. Should get her to speak here next year. She'd be awesome. And she is the founder and CEO of a company called Hedley and Bennett, and they make aprons. Over 4,000 companies around the world wear her aprons. And she believes she focuses so much on the importance of speaking in an authentic voice. And this was from day one of her company. Now, if I said she was a pistol, if you meet Ellen, what is that authentic voice? She is loud, she is direct, she is very strong, and Daniel, my 12-year-old here, she's often dropping the F-bomb in her talks. And it's just who she is. And I'm certainly not standing up here telling all of you that that's an important way to be real, is to start swearing in your presentations. But for Ellen, it is real because it's authentic and it's who she is. Ellen focuses on speaking in an authentic voice across all mediums of communication, from her Instagram to email to one-on-one and to large groups. And I was really impressed. In many startups, you have no money, especially to throw at ancillary things. People put up their Instagram page and they just start throwing pictures up there. But Ellen said from day one, I'm not going to do that. She put money and hired a photographer to curate the photos that went up on their Instagram because she knew that would show who they are as a brand. They now have 83,000 Instagram followers, and I urge you to check out their Instagram. It is unbelievable. And I truly believe that if you look at it, it will feel different to you than other companies' Instagram. And she is invested in it. She has curated these photos in a way that helps communicate who they are and who she is. Another little side story is she told me that she was copied on an email. And it was from one employee to another employee. Somehow she got copied, and she looked at this, and she's like, what is this? And probably dropped the F-bomb there, too. And she saw the email was written in a way, like even an email, that was not consistent with their voice as a company. I think she said to the employee, we're not Goldman Sachs. Like, what are you doing in this communication? And I think that this is something very tangible. It's something that all of you can do, is think about how you speak in an authentic voice across all of these different mediums of communication, especially now the technology, because we are using it more and more. A second way to speak in an authentic voice is through storytelling, which is unbelievably powerful. To identify where people are living these values and sharing it with the rest of the company. To go back to Lyft for a minute, I had mentioned that one of their values was uplift others. And Ron Storn, who was the head of HR at Lyft up until recently, told me the story where the leaders go around and their goal is to find examples of where people are living these values so they can share them with the organization. And a recent story really touched me that I wanted to share. About 2 years ago on Valentine's Day, a passenger got into a Lyft car. The driver said, "Happy Valentine's Day. Will you be my Valentine?" And all of a sudden, the woman, the passenger, started crying. Instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe there's a crying woman in the backseat of my car, what am I gonna do?" or worrying about the next 10 fares that he wanted to get that night, he pulled over, had a conversation, wanted to know what was going on in her life. 15 minutes later, they continue on their way, he drops her off, and that was it. About 3 weeks later, a friend of the passenger emailed the CEO and said, "I just want you to know about this driver. He really touched my friend and impacted her, pulled over, had a conversation. I found out after the fact that she had been contemplating suicide. Your driver changed her life." And if that story had stayed just between the person who had emailed it and the CEO, that would have been fine. But the opportunity to amplify this and share this with everyone in the company at the all hands meeting lifted up every single person in that company. A really powerful way. And I often say in my talks and with clients, these things are free. They don't cost anything. They are so accessible to everyone in this room. And the final way to be real is to empower your employees. The real test to know if your values have come off the walls and are in the halls is, what are your employees doing when the boss isn't looking, right? That defines who you really are. So who was at Mike Elliott's JetBlue talk today at 11? A lot of people. It was great. JetBlue is one of probably my favorite human company, with their mission being to inspire humanity. They're an unbelievable example of a company that empowers its employees to live their values. And as an aside, they have 5, so it hits that sweet spot. They have 5 values. JetBlue has a program, a system, a way of talking about this idea of empowering employees. And they call it Jet Gray, because like our zebra here, who's covered in black and white, we all know that life is not always black and white, it is gray, right? Gray. So life can be gray. So at JetBlue, they talk about this idea of jet gray, meaning when a crew member is in a situation, and many times it's at 37,000 feet, they want their crew members to live the values. They don't necessarily want them to always stay on script. They want them to be able to make decisions in real time, aligned with their values. And for those of you who have flown JetBlue, it feels different on that airline. It's more playful. It can be fun. It's obviously the safety first. And what I love when you talk to them about their values, there are 5 values. Safety is the first value. So you want it to be fun, but only if it's safe, as a frequent flyer. So Mike told me, I visited Mike in his office, and he told me this great story where a group of flight attendants discovered that 2 passengers on the plane flying from New York to California for a shotgun wedding. And one of the crew members said, "Let's throw a wedding on the plane." And so the first crew member got on the PA and he did the ceremony, and the second crew member gathered up a bunch of napkins, and they were the flowers going up the aisle, and the third person was the witness, and they ended up with some passenger who had a violin and people were dancing. And one of their values is fun. And so it's a way that, in this type of thing, is celebrated across the organization. And if some of you know their recognition program called LIFT, these kinds of things bring the values to life. And there's nothing in the handbook that can tell those employees to do that other than perhaps bring your human to work. So where does that leave us? Here is the good news for those of us in this group. It's not rocket science. And I hope you saw and felt that today. It's not rocket science, but it's not easy. It takes a tremendous amount of work, discipline, and most of all, intention. A lot of intention. The good news, you're all at a WorkHuman conference, so you have that intention. 3 ways to do it. Know who you are, define your values, try to keep it to 4 to 6. Speak in an authentic voice across all of your mediums of communication, and tell stories to amplify that voice. And finally, empower your employees. And if you do this, you will create a real, authentic workplace that's good for people, great for business, and just might change the world. Thank you.